Three numbers reveal America's worst military betrayal: $60 billion, $19 billion, and $6 billion. Together they represent how much money Canada just diverted from American defense contractors to European and Asian partners. The Pentagon is in shock as decades of military cooperation vanish overnight. But before you condemn Canada, you need to hear the complete story. In this video, we'll expose how Trump's crushing 25% tariffs on Canadian steel destroyed their manufacturing sector, while he labeled our closest ally a national security threat. We'll reveal the shocking recording where American officials suggested Canada might need to be annexed if they didn't comply with trade demands. By the end, you'll be asking yourself, who really betrayed who in this $85 billion military divorce? The $60 billion submarine betrayal, how French nuclear technology is replacing American naval power. The shocking scene at Halifax Harbor left American officials speechless. A French nuclear-powered submarine docked just 300 miles from the US border, but this wasn't a diplomatic visit. The FS Tourville, a massive 99-meter Suffren-class nuclear submarine, pulled into port with a clear message: France is replacing America as Canada's premier naval partner. American defense officials scrambled for answers as Canadian and French naval personnel exchanged warm greetings on the docks. This wasn't merely a friendly port call, it was a calculated demonstration of France's submarine technology for Canadian defense officials, marking the beginning of the end for decades of US-Canadian naval cooperation. The Tourville's arrival served as the public face of something far more significant. Behind closed doors, Canada had already been negotiating a massive $60 billion deal to acquire up to 12 nuclear-powered submarines from France. Canada is actively seeking independence from American influence over its naval capabilities. For decades, Canada depended entirely on American naval technology and intelligence sharing, a relationship took completely for granted. That partnership is now sinking faster than a torpedo-struck frigate. The Tourville impressed Canadian officials with its remarkable capabilities. This behemoth can dive deeper than 350 meters, displaces 5,200 tons when submerged, and comes armed with naval cruise missiles and modernized Exocet SM-39 anti-ship missiles. Canadian officials were practically drooling over capabilities that far exceed anything in their current fleet. Canada's Victoria-class submarines have become maritime relics, aging museum pieces spending more time in repair facilities than patrolling Canadian waters. These outdated vessels have proven completely inadequate for Arctic operations, leaving Canada vulnerable precisely where it needs strength most. The Barracuda-class submarines Canada is purchasing offer complete operational independence from US control systems. No more permission slips needed from Washington. No more sharing every scrap of intelligence. Canada is buying its naval freedom and America is furious. The French submarines are specifically designed for the capabilities Canada desperately needs. Their stealth operations, long mission endurance, and advanced intelligence gathering systems make them ideal for Arctic conditions, where competition for control intensifies. What's truly devastating for American defense contractors is that in the past, deals of this magnitude almost always went to US companies by default. The unwritten rule was simple: Canada buys American. That sacred arrangement has been torpedoed by French ingenuity and Canadian determination. The contract timeline reveals Canada's urgency to break free. The government aims to have the first replacement submarine delivered by 2035, with a contract award expected by 2028. This isn't some distant fantasy. It's a concrete plan to permanently alter the balance of power in North American waters. Canada's pivot to France followed months of Trump imposing crushing 25% tariffs on Canadian steel that devastated their shipbuilding industry while labeling Canada a national security threat. When your closest ally treats you like an enemy, you find new friends, and that's exactly what Canada did. The Halifax demonstration was a masterclass in humiliation. While the Tourville conducted cold water performance tests in Canadian waters, American naval officials could only watch helplessly as their influence slipped away. The French submarine didn't just bring firepower, it brought the promise of true sovereignty for Canada's naval operations. Military analysts call this the most significant shift in North American naval defense cooperation in over half a century. The fact that Canada is willing to spend $60 billion, an astronomical sum for their defense budget, shows just how determined they are to escape America's shadow. Quick break. If you're enjoying this video, we'd love it if you could like and subscribe. It's surprising how over 98% of our viewers watch without subscribing. Subscribing is totally free, and it really helps us keep making the content you love, so go ahead and tap that button. It just takes a second. Thanks for your support, and now let's jump back in. The F-35 fighter jet rebellion, Canada's $19 billion middle finger to American air dominance. Naval independence was just the first step in Canada's defense divorce from America. While officials were still trying to comprehend the submarine scandal, an even more significant crisis was unfolding in the skies. Defense Minister Bill Blair dropped a bombshell that threatens to collapse the entire F-35 fighter program. After 26 years of partnership and billions invested, Canada is potentially walking away from America's most advanced fighter jet, and they're taking other countries with them. The $19 billion fighter jet contract signed just last year now lies in tatters. A deal that was considered ironclad 18 months ago is looking at being shredded before the ink has even dried. Blair's announcement wasn't some minor adjustment or schedule delay, it was a complete rejection of America's aviation dominance. The Prime Minister has asked me to examine those things and have discussions with other sources, Blair stated bluntly, particularly where there may be opportunities to assemble those fighter jets in Canada. Translation: America's closest defense partner is actively shopping for European alternatives to replace the world's most advanced stealth fighter. The rejection stings Pentagon officials deeply because Canada has been a founding partner since 1997. Canadian taxpayers have poured billions into developing the F-35 over 26 years, making this pivot away a middle finger in the skies to American defense supremacy. The timing couldn't be worse for Lockheed Martin. Their entire business model for the F-35 depends on international buyers to maintain production volumes and keep costs manageable. With Canada now only accepting the first 16 jets already paid for and seeking alternatives for the remaining 72 aircraft, the entire ecosystem of the F-35 program faces potential collapse. European fighter manufacturers swarmed Ottawa with unprecedented offers. Sweden's Saab aggressively pushes their Gripen fighters, promising full assembly on Canadian soil. The Gripen excels specifically in harsh northern climates and costs significantly less than the F-35. Saab's proposal gives Canada complete control over maintenance and upgrades, addressing a critical vulnerability in the F-35 arrangement. France's Dassault Rafale and the multinational Eurofighter Typhoon consortium are also circling with tantalizing proposals, all featuring significantly less American content than the F-35. These options eliminate a frightening scenario. American officials could theoretically block software updates during a diplomatic dispute, essentially grounding Canada's entire fighter fleet with the push of a button. The Pentagon's response has been nothing short of desperate. Emergency delegations rushed to Ottawa offering unprecedented technology transfer agreements and maintenance concessions, things they've never offered any other partner nation, but the damage was already done. Portuguese officials watched Canada's rebellion closely and followed suit immediately. Portugal completely cancelled their own F-35 procurement, citing unpredictable U.S. foreign policy as the primary reason. Defense Minister Nuno Melo emphasized Portugal's need to rethink reliance on a partner whose positions change too quickly. This domino effect is exactly what Pentagon officials feared most. If two NATO allies can walk away from the F-35 program with minimal consequences, what's stopping others from following their lead? Beyond the financial implications, the fighter jet rebellion represents a fundamental erosion of trust. The F-35 requires constant software updates controlled entirely by the United States. Canada's shift toward European alternatives reveals they're no longer willing to place their national security in American hands. The stark reality is that fighter jets have become the latest casualty in North America's crumbling defense relationship. Canada's pivot toward European partners with promises of domestic production represents more than just a business decision. It's a complete rejection of American technological dominance that has defined Western military aviation for the past 50 years. The Australian radar coup: how Canada shut America out of Arctic defense. The radar betrayal cuts deeper than the aircraft and submarine deals combined. While Canada's rejection of American fighter jets stung, what happened in Iqaluit last week left Pentagon officials in stunned silence. Prime Minister Mark Carney, standing at the northernmost edge of Canadian territory with the icy waters separating Canada from Greenland visible in the distance, announced a shocking $6 billion partnership with Australia that effectively ends 65 years of joint Arctic defense cooperation with the United States. The JORN Operational Radar Network, or JORN Deal, transforms the entire security landscape of North America overnight. This Australian system can detect aircraft and ships up to 3,000 kilometers away by bouncing radio signals off the ionosphere, outperforming America's aging dew-line technology by 500%. JORN covers every inch of Canada's vast Arctic frontier without a single American component or access point, completely shutting America out of the picture. What makes this betrayal so devastating is how deliberately Canada cut American defense contractors out of the bidding process. Not a single proposal was considered from American giants like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, or Northrop Grumman companies that have dominated North American defense infrastructure for generations. The timing and location of Carney's announcement couldn't have been more symbolic. Standing on the frozen shores near Greenland, Carney appeared as a solitary figure against the vast Arctic expanse, a physical embodiment of Canada's new isolation from American influence. "We cannot and should not look to others to defend our nation," Carney declared to the assembled crowd in Iqaluit, the icy wind carrying his words across the Arctic landscape like a cold declaration of independence. This Australian deal directly undermines NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, the backbone of continental security since 1958. For 65 years, every threat approaching North America from the north has been jointly monitored and assessed by American and Canadian personnel working side by side. That partnership is now effectively dead. When the JORN system becomes operational in 2029, Canada will have complete surveillance independence over its Arctic territory, with zero obligation to share that intelligence with the United States. Russian and Chinese military movements in the increasingly contested Arctic region could be detected by Canada, but kept hidden from American commanders. The betrayal forced Carney to make an unprecedented public admission about America's changing priorities. In a statement that sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles, Carney didn't mince words. "The world is changing. Our adversaries are increasingly emboldened, and the United States' priorities, once closely aligned with our own, are beginning to shift." No Canadian Prime Minister has ever made such a direct public acknowledgement of eroding trust in American security guarantees. Trump's controversial vision for Greenland became the catalyst for Canada's radar rebellion. His repeated assertions about America's right to acquire resource-rich Arctic territories exposed a fundamental shift in American thinking, one that made Canadian officials question whether they might someday face similar territorial pressure. The Pentagon scrambled to respond, sending an emergency delegation to Ottawa within hours of the announcement, but the damage was already done. Senior defense officials admitted privately that they were completely blindsided by the Australian deal, having assumed Arctic defense would always remain an exclusive American-Canadian partnership. This radar system doesn't just monitor for military threats, it provides comprehensive surveillance of shipping routes opening up as Arctic ice melts. Whoever controls this information controls the future of Arctic commerce and resource development. And Canada just handed that power to Australia instead of its longtime American partner. The total disintegration of North America's military alliance is sending shockwaves through Pentagon corridors. Military planners are scrambling to adapt as Canada's $66 billion pivot shatters decades of cooperation. Can America rebuild trust, or is this the irreversible end of a once-united defense front? These tensions have historical precedent. Whenever America embraces protectionism, Canada pushes for greater independence. As Canada diversifies its defense partnerships across Europe and Asia, the balance of power within NATO itself is shifting dramatically. The question isn't about repairing what's broken, it's whether these countries should even try. Has America's unpredictability forced Canada into an act of national survival? In the shifting chessboard of global power, Canada's latest move could redefine the game forever. And if you want to stay updated on the latest controversies, power plays, and global shifts, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell. The world is changing fast, and we'll be here to break it all down for you. See you in the next video.